A very good evening to you, our esteemed viewer. Thank you so much for choosing Church of Uganda Family TV. This is the Family Hour, Tuesday edition, where we discuss family health. Now, it is very important that you mind about your health as a family. And we are grateful that you have chose Church of Uganda Family TV at this particular time. Adrian Austin Mukalazi is my name. Now, today, we are going to discuss a very crucial aspect in our lives. Of course, we know that every year cardiovascular diseases claim millions of lives worldwide, and this is really very alarming. This is the reason as to why every 29th of September is the World Heart Day. Now, this is to remind us to take care of our hearts, to mind about our hearts. And one of the ways in which we can do this is by making routine checkups to find out how your health is and how you are progressing, which is very important. Of course, we know that the specialists were agitating for a policy of physical education. Why? Sorry, physical exercises. Why? Because they think this is one of the ways we can help improve our heart health. But there is also much more than physical exercises. We can also talk about nutrition, as we are going to discuss today. This is also a very important aspect when it comes to heart health. So today and the whole of this month, we are going to have detailed discussions on cardiovascular diseases or heart health, which you do not have to miss every Tuesday as we discuss family health. Very important. You shouldn't miss anything. Today we have one of those people who is going to tackle that very sensitive aspect when it comes to our heart health. He is going to discuss nutrition and the heart. With us is Mr. Musoga Denis, who is the head of nutrition department, Uganda Heart Institute. You're most welcome, sir.
I think so, sir. Thank you.
It's a pleasure having you this evening.
Yeah, thank you.
Kindly greet our viewers, and then we go into today's discussion.
Good evening, our viewers, and praise the Lord. This is a Christian TV, right?
Amen.
Yeah, praise the Lord. Yeah. I'm Denis Musoga from Heart Institute. I head the nutrition department in the Heart Institute.
We are excited to have you discuss about nutrition here because you realize that we have, I don't know, but there is a way we underlook nutrition. We never mind what we eat, and we don't even know what will come out of what we eat, so we just eat for the sake.
And do you know why we undermine it?
No.
It's because we've been doing it for a long time.
Okay.
So we are accustomed to it. Anything you do for a long time, you tend to abuse it, It kind of becomes common and
Okay.
And small things are very dangerous sometimes.
Actually, we started from there. We started from there. In talk about nutrition, just to give a layman's understanding of the term nutrition, what does it mean?
It's food and how it works in your body.
Okay.
Like from digestion to absorption, and then the release of nutrients into your blood. So it's breaking down. That's nutrition. Anything you eat that is broken down, digested, absorbed, assimilated to release nutrients to give you energy, proteins, and stuff like that is food, is nutrition.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right.
So you remind me of what we used to study way back in science. We used to have something we called a balanced diet.
Absolutely.
So what is the difference between nutrition and diet?
It's the same thing.
Okay.
It's the same thing. Nutrition is the science of food being taken in, broken down, and blah, blah. Now, diet is the particular foods you eat. Like your father of a plant-based diet, animal-based diet, it's the kind of food that you eat.
Okay. Now, we are looking at nutrition and the heart. First of all, how are the two related? How is nutrition related to the heart? Because someone would really ask, and because you've told us that nutrition is what we take, the process, what we take in and how it is absorbed and digested and all that. So someone would really ask, how is that related now to my heart?
Oh, yeah. Well, there's a very close relationship between the heart and nutrition.
Okay.
Of course, poor nutrition will lead to poor heart. I mean, your heart will fall sick, reason being that you're eating poorly. Now, there are several heart conditions, lying from congenital to acquired. There are children who are born with heart conditions, and then there are people who acquire them in life by reason of lifestyle, how they choose what to eat, how they go about with life, like smoking, like taking off cigarettes and stuff like that, and then taking off alcohol. But now, like I told you, there are two reasons why the heart should be may fall sick. Yes. One of them is a child can be born with a heart condition, but the other thing is the acquired. Now, amongst the acquired is where diet lies. You're hearing me? We talked about physical exercise. You talked about physical exercise. You talked about other things. But diet is also one of the most important things that will cause a heart falling sick if abused. Okay. So there's a relationship between diet and nutrition, and actually the most important diet is very key when it comes to cardiovascular diseases.
Okay.
Yes.
So that now takes us into the detailed discussion.
Right,
Today we want to discuss nutrition.
Oh, yeah.
And like you say, that if nutrition is abused,
yes, right.
So how do people abuse nutrition?
You've heard of a saying which says you are what you eat, right?
Yes.
In other words, somebody is what you eat. Now, just like any drug, nutrition is a drug. You've heard of people say, take food as medicine. Any drug, when abused, it will lead to your body being unhealthy. One of the predisposing factors of heart condition is things like obesity. You're hearing me? And obesity is led by poor dieting. Taking in a lot of sugars, a lot of fats, and then you grow obese with less physical exercise will result to cardiovascular diseases. The other thing, there are about 3 important foods that will result to heart conditions. One of them is sugars. You see? The other is fats. And then the other is salt. Those 3 important foods, once abused, they result to a heart condition. Okay. You hearing me? Yeah. Especially, so let's talk about salt now. Yes. Salt is very key. You've heard about salt, which result to sodium. Salt is a combination of sodium and chloride. Now, sodium is so important in the body. We all need sodium in the body for muscle function, for fluid balance, for so many things. But once the salt is so much in your blood, it kind of like increases the blood volume. And once the blood volume increases, the result is increase in blood pressure, and all these things happen unawares. You're hearing me? You've heard about osmosis, like water or something moving from a place of low concentration to a place of high concentration. So every time you take a high salt diet, or your salt is too much in your diet, you kind of like cause the blood become, hypertonic, and so doing to kind of like attract a lot of water to it, and then the volume will increase. You're hearing me? And once the volume increases, remember the vessels remain the same. So what will happen? The pressure will go high. You hear it by reason of this volume. And now all this happens unaware. You're not aware about it, You're not aware about it. And that's why you talked something very important at first. You said that the most important thing is to do a heart check. And one of them is running your blood pressure. You should know how much your blood pressure is. So when you do that, you can capture this pressure early, very early. So salt is okay, and that is why it's so imperative that when people are choosing foods, they should choose foods that are very low in salt. You hearing me? How? Number one, if you so much find that food is not sufficient in your food, rather salt is not sufficient in your food, don't add it in. Number one. Number two, there are foods you shouldn't add salt on. Like for instance, you're taking avocado, pear. It's not important to add on salt. It already has sodium in it. Don't add on salt. If you're taking a boiled egg, don't add on it salt. You hear it? If you're given vegetable salads, don't add on salt. If you're taking some chips, don't kind of like, keep on adding on salt. Why? Because if you do so, you're going to cause your blood volume increase, and then the pressure will go higher and higher. Actually, salt is one of the things that causes hypertension. Okay. You see the point? And remember, hypertension is a killer. The recent Uganda health demographic survey shows that every 4 adults you see, one of them is hypertensive. And the danger is that overall, almost 80% are not aware they have what? They're hypertensive. And the leading cause, one of the leading causes is salt. Okay. You hearing me? So it's important that people mind the salt they take. Read labels. For instance, if you go to a supermarket and you're supposed to pick a convenient food, it's important you take time and read on the labels. Those labels you find on foodstuffs are not for decoration and stuff. They're designed for you to know what ingredients are in there. So take time, find out how much salt is in the food, and then If it's too much, cut it off, you know.
So what do you consider too much salt?
World Health Organization recommends that a person should take about 2.4 grams of salt. Now, 2.4 grams is about a teaspoon. That is for a person without any NCDs, no hypertension, no cardiovascular disease, no diabetes. But if a person with should take half of that, that's about 1.2 grams, a teaspoon of salt in the entire day. Now, what does that mean? It means if you calculate how much salt we take, each one of us, we take way far more than 2.4. Because it's in the sauce, some of it is hidden. You've heard of hidden salt. Like the foods, for instance, bread may have salt in it, but you don't taste it. You're hearing me? So all that's why it's important to read on the label. Salt is one of the food that is so dangerous as far as causing hypertension and cardiovascular disease is concerned.
Okay.
Yes.
That is one. You talked about salt. You talked about sugar. And
the other important food is sugar. Now, sugar is energy for the body. It's just like how you put fuel in your car and drive anywhere. Any person needs sugar. So all food that's taken in, one of the things when the body breaks it down, goes through digestion, one of the things we produce is glucose. You hearing me? Now, glucose is key. We need it. We need it for our body. But the danger about glucose is that every time it's excess, the body turns it into fat. You hearing me? The body turns it into fat. So the more glucose you take, the more foods that are high in glucose that you take, the more you accumulate fat in your body, the more you accumulate fat. And eventually we have something called such as fat cells. You know, eventually the fat cells will get full. And what happens every time you produce glucose in your blood? Now, when glucose gets your blood, the pancreas is triggered off to release a hormone called insulin. You know, the beta cells of the pancreas produce insulin. And the purpose of insulin is to regulate the blood sugar in the blood, to regulate, to take it back, you know, takes it back so that it's normal, it's within the norm. Now, what happens if you take more of sugar and takes more of sugar, eventually the pancreas will give way. You'll develop what we call insulin resistance. Before you realize you have diabetes, before you realize you have hypertension. So sugar is so key, and that is why it's imperative that folks roundabout reduce the amount of sugar they take. How? Number one, avoid refined sugars. What do I mean by refined sugars? Refined sugars are basically sugars which are more of glucose than anything else. You're hearing that? Take an example like brown bread vis-a-vis white bread. Now, white bread has been gotten of fiber. When fiber is taken away, most likely the aminos are reduced, the vitamins are reduced. You hear me? So they leave more of glucose. I mean, the white bread has more glucose than other nutrients. And every time a glucose is like alone or more, it kind of runs. It is what we call high glycemic index. It kind of runs rapidly to the blood, and that's what we don't want. So that is why it's important that when you're choosing foods, we have two types of foods. We have foods that come from the garden to the kitchen, and these are basically things like roots, potatoes, sweet potatoes, matoke, now yams and stuff like that. Now those foods are kind of better than the cereals, the refined cereals. You hear him? But amongst those foods that I've mentioned, the potatoes are quite dangerous. The Irish potatoes. Okay. You hear me? They tend to be high glycemic index. And that is why when you eat the Irish potatoes, and with the same quantity like somebody who eats sweet potatoes, the person who is eating the Irish potatoes will get hungry faster. Why? Because it goes through the digestive system so quickly, and that's what we don't want. You're hearing me? So the sugar is quickly released to the blood, and we don't want that. That is why every time you're choosing foods, it's important that you choose foods that are more fiber or take longer, like you have heard of complex carbohydrates, like sweet potatoes, like cassava. Yes, you'll take it, but it will keep you satisfied for a while. So meaning the blood release, rather the sugar release to the blood is slower compared to that food. So we have another type of food called the foods that come from the garden to the factory and then to the kitchen. And these are basically cereals. So among the cereals, we have things like rice, we have things like posho and blah, blah. Now, these cereals, when they go through a factory, they produce two types. They produce the refined type, the fine type, which everybody likes. Like, for instance, Edwin, you wouldn't like to take posho, which is brownish.
Of course.
You want the white.
That was each time they served it at school. That was
you'd miss, you know. You hear me? So everybody wants to take chikosolo, that type. So nobody wants to take that kind of posho. Why? It's dirty. It's though it's tasty, you know. It's kind of tasty, but it's dirty, so people don't like it. And yet that's the healthy portion. Why? Because it has fiber in, it has more nutrients in compared to the white portion. You hearing me? So when you take the cholesterol type, the sugar levels run into your blood are slower. You hearing me? So by being slower, your weight will be checked. You hearing me? Your weight will be checked. Your cholesterol will be checked. You know, sometimes when you take a high sugar diet, most like one of the products could be cholesterol. You hearing that? It could be cholesterol. So basically, those two types of food should be checked. Then the other important food we talked about is the fats.
Yes.
Now, fats are also risky when it comes to causation of cardiovascular diseases. Fats, and amongst the fats, we have two types of fats. We have the saturated type of fat and then the unsaturated type of fat. Now, the saturated type of fat is basically fat that comes from animals. Usually, it's solid at room temperature. You know, things like ghee, things like margarine, things like butter. You know, they're solid at room temperature. We even have plant-based fats that could be solid at room temperature. You hearing me?
Yeah.
Now, when a fat is solid at room temperature, it means it has more cholesterol. In other words, it's detrimental for your health when it comes to cardiovascular diseases. And so you have to be careful about it. So that means when you're choosing fats, it's important to use fats. Fats are healthy. Okay. You hearing me? We need fats. I mean, most of our body is fat for insulation, for you know, warmth and stuff. So fat is important. You hearing me? But when you're choosing fats, it's important to choose plant-based fats, the liquid plant-based fats. Things like sunflower oil, things like olive oil. I usually tell my clients that the clearer the oil, the better. You hear me? If you can see through an oil, or if light can go through an oil, the better. It means that oil is less of cholesterol. You hear me? Actually, some oils like olive oil are also high in good cholesterol, what we call HDL, high density lipoproteins. So hence fighting the low density lipoprotein. You hear me? So basically, those are the three foods that could be so key. And when you're choosing foods, you have to mind the three foods. You know, of course, other things are like alcohol, which will also result to sugar. You hear me? Okay. Of course, alcohol like beers. You know, they'll give you a lot of sugar, and that's why most people take beers. Usually come out with pot bellies. You know, because of the high glucose levels. And then maybe cigarette smoking can also be dangerous. Of course, that will affect your vessels because of that nicotine component in tobacco. It kind of like makes you know, the vessels, the blood vessels are supposed to be soft and pliable. You see, so that they play well as blood goes through them. But now when you're a regular consumer of tobacco, the vessels become, you know, stick. They become stick, so they can't play anymore. They become unflexible, and by so doing, they can easily begin to, you know, to be deposited. They plague. The cholesterol can easily deposit. They become inflamed, and eventually they get sick. Eventually they're narrowed. Eventually you have cholesterol and blah. So basically, those are things which could cause. Okay.
Just briefly to go back to the refined sugars.
Right. Yeah.
There is. We have a lot of questions when it comes to refined sugars,
right, yeah.
And the sugars. Maybe someone expected you to talk about, and maybe you didn't talk about them. The sugar we add in our tea, or the sugars we take in juices, and all that. Yeah.
Sugar. You know, the type of sugar we use is called empty calorie. Well, we have two types of sugar. We have the brown sugar. Yeah. I wish I brought some. I have some samples, you know. The brown sugar, and then we have the white sugar. But the commonest in most homes is the white sugar. Yeah. Now, the white sugar doesn't have anything apart from glucose. It's called an empty calorie. And remember, I told you, every time you do an empty calorie, every time you do a glucose as a glucose alone, it runs rapidly into your blood. Have you ever asked yourself a question why, if somebody ran and then eventually became hypoglycemic and maybe fainted because of hypoglycemia, you know what they give them? They give them glucose. Why glucose? They can't give them a fruit. You hearing me? They can't give them a fruit. They can't give them a soda. Glucose. Why? Because it's a glucose. It pew into the blood. Within minutes, somebody's up. You hearing me? So the added sugar for an adult shouldn't go in for the refined sugars. For an adult, I mean somebody who's about 25, 30 years, depending on your activity. You hearing me? Yeah, sometimes, Edwin, you can choose what to eat depending on your day. For instance, if you have a farm and you purpose that today I'm going to go to my farm, I'm going to, dig around, I'm going to, take care of the animals. In other words, your day is going to be busy. You can choose to eat differently. You hearing me? Maybe you can add some more sugars in your diet. Now, if you woke up a day and like today, I'm just going to drive to work, then I'll sit the whole day and then drive back home. Then you can also choose to eat differently. You hearing me?
Yeah.
So in other words, no food is really risky depending on what you do and how your day is.
Okay.
You get the point?
Okay.
But in a nutshell, the white sugar is dangerous. This is the same sugar they add in beverages. You hearing me? So if you're looking at heart health and overall general health, it's important that you don't go in for added sugar. Rather use things like honey. Honey is okay. Why okay?
In whichever quantity you take it?
Well, of course you have to reduce the quantity, but it's still better than the refined sugars. And you know why? The difference that honey has other things. Yeah, in the honey you'll find things like vitamins, there are minerals in there, there are proteins in there. So the combination of all those nutrients checks the glucose. You hearing me? It may taste sweeter than sugar, but it's low glycemic index, Okay. So you can also use brown sugar. Brown sugar is sugar with molasses. You see, the funny thing about it is that when they're making these things, the cheaper one is more expensive when they're selling it. The cheaper one to make, like brown sugar is cheaper to make compared to the refined sugar. But when you go to the market, the brown sugar is about 5 times the price of the white refined sugar. You hear me? So you can, instead of the white sugar, you can do the brown sugar as well. Brown sugar is brown. Brown, it's rough, it has molasses in, it's brown. You hearing me? It's brown. Likewise, sugar in bread, sugar in snacks like mandazi. That's why it's important when you're doing the things, it's important you make them back home using brown wheat, with the right oil, and then you come out with a food which is really healthy.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you so much. We are taking a short commercial break, and when we return, we are going to discuss more about our nutrition and how, if you abuse the nutrition, then you are causing yourself trouble, especially with your heart. Please stick with us. Welcome back from the commercial break. This is the Family Hour, only on Church of Uganda Family TV, empowering families one episode at a time. This is our Tuesday edition where we discuss family health. Now, we know that 29th September was the World Heart Day, and because cardiovascular diseases are part of the non-communicable diseases that are really killing up people every now and then, it is important that we discuss more about cardiovascular diseases. So that is why we want to thank so much Uganda Heart Institute that has really agreed to work with us the whole of this month as we discuss issues to do with cardiovascular diseases, from nutrition to a lot of discussions every Tuesday the whole of this month of October. So you don't need to miss any episode here on Church of Uganda Family TV Family Hour. Today we are looking at nutrition and the heart. We are with Dr. Musoga Denis, who is the head of nutrition department, that is the Uganda Heart Institute. Before the break, you had actually brought in something. You were actually advising people to, if possible, to do some of things like mandazi at home.
That's right.
And then someone, little did I know that someone already sent in a concern that what about we, the young people, who feed on chikomando the entire week? Well, I think he's representing very many people, and let us comment about the nutrients in the chikomando. Actually, he tagged chikomando and Rolex.
All right. Well, the one I was sent in that question, remember every time you're having a meal, it's important to make sure your meal is well balanced. What do we mean by balance? Balance means that it should have proteins, it should have some vitamins, should have some minerals, it should have some calories, some, carbohydrates, Chikomando is a component of chapati, and then some beans. The beans are healthy, of course. It's a protein, it's a plant protein, and I believe there is some fat in there because usually they're fried, right? Are they fried? And the chapati is basically glucose, carbohydrates. So your meal already is not balanced. You're hearing me? Your meal is not balanced. I mean, I'm not seeing there a lot of vitamins. I'm not seeing there. Well, there could be some minerals, So basically, Chikomando, and remember Chikomando, the chapati has salt, and then the beans also have salt. So basically, it's risky, taking Chikomando from day one to probably Sunday is terrible. So you need to check your diet. You need to balance it. Yes, you're a young man, right? Most of these conditions are called chronic. Chronic to mean that the heart issues, especially the acquired type of heart conditions, hypertension and blah blah, are chronic. Chronic to mean that they don't come overnight. They're not acute. You're hearing me? They grow over time. Some of them start way back when you're a teenager, when you're an early adult. They grow, unawares. They grow unaware. So it's important to start dieting appropriately quite early in life. You hearing me? Quite early in life. We've been doing outreaches in primary school, and we're teaching these young kids in primary school to eat appropriately. You hearing me? Because what we're trying to fight, the hypertension, the cardiovascular diseases, start way back. They are chronic. In other words, they grow over time. And the moment they are fully grown, you can't take them back. The only thing we shall do is to prolong your life. You're hearing that? So, Chikomando and Rolex is chapati.
Eggs.
And then eggs. Well, protein still is not balanced. There are no vitamins, and this maybe they put in some tomatoes and some onions, but it's not well balanced. So and the chapati has a lot of calories. You see, well, you could, as a young man, you're active, right? You could burn it out by reason of exercise and stuff. But as you grow older, it's important that you reduce the number of carbohydrates you take. Right. You hear right now you may be safe, but remember it's a chronic disease. It can start now and then keep on growing. So it's important that you minimize the calories as you grow older.
Okay.
Yes.
Actually, as we are growing up, we used to think, it was a mind that such diseases were diseases for the rich.
For the
people.
rich, that's right. That's
right. And when we look at the statistics now,
right now, yes.
they are no longer discriminative. Both the poor and the rich are really having the same.
Now you realize the West, the West mean Europe and then America, have had some of these issues, but surprisingly now, Africans, the poor Africans, are becoming more sick than the Europeans when it comes to what? To cardiovascular diseases, Yes. So it's not the disease for the rich. No. It's because people didn't know they had them. You hear me? We have people come from the village. We do outreaches around all over the country. And surprisingly, we go to villages and then you find people who are hypertensive. Poor and hypertensive. Can you imagine you're poor and hypertensive? That's dangerous because cardiovascular diseases are very expensive to manage. You hearing me? You can't afford to be poor and then at the same time become hypertensive. The same time have a cardiovascular disease. You're in danger. You're in danger because it's so costly to treat them. You hearing me? So, love yourself and eat appropriately.
Now, eating appropriately, how should someone balance their plate? If you can talk, how should a nutritious plate look like?
If you had a plates are usually round,
Yes.
Some plates are, oval, others are square.
These days even have plates that in a shape of a fish.
A heart, or, But ideally, if a plate is round, it's important to divide the plate into 4 quarters.
Okay.
The first 2 quarters should be fruits and vegetables. You hearing me? In other words, fruits and vegetables should carry the biggest percentage of your plate. And then the other quarter should be the protein source, the protein. And then the last quarter, the 4th quarter, should be the carbohydrate food, meaning that the carbohydrate food should be the least on the plate. You're hearing that, Edwin? Now, surprisingly or amazingly, most of us is the carbohydrate which carries the 3 quarters and then some little sauce somewhere in the corner and then no fruits, no vegetables at all. Sure. Now, what thing people should understand, Edwin, WHO recommends that one doctor should at least see 1,000, at most see 1,000 patients. One doctor should at most see 1,000 patients. Now, what's funny is that in Uganda, one doctor says about 25,000. You're hearing me? You're hearing that? That is a lot.
Sure.
That's a lot. The recommendation is 1,000.
It is 25 times.
It's 20. It's 20. Yeah, 24,000.
Yeah.
You're hearing me? 24,000. So what does that mean? It means that the 24,000 patients will go without a doctor.
True.
That's terrible. And what do? You should be a doctor of yourself. You hearing me? By taking these preventive measures we're talking about, diet, be a doctor of yourself. Because look at this, you're going to get a cardiovascular disease, and then you're competing with about 24,999 patients to see one doctor. You're not going to see him. You're not going to see him. So what will happen? You'll move around for weeks without seeing a doctor. And what's going to happen? You're going to die. You're hearing me? So the best way, Edwin, way back in primary, they used to teach us that prevention is better than cure.
Yes.
You're hearing me?
Yes.
The best way to avoid a non-communicable disease such as cardiovascular diseases is to prevent it. Stop it. Any person can stop it. I mean, you can grow without it. Japan, their lifespan is about 86 years for women, for men, and 87 years for women. In other words, an average Japanese, factors constant, lives to be 87 years. Japan, you'll go to a village and you find about 100 people, they're called centenarians, people over 100 years, 100 of them in one village, and healthy, jogging and playing about. You're hearing me? So, and they're not Christians like you. You're hearing me? And remember very well, it's Psalms 91:16, with long life shall I satisfy you. You're hearing God gives life. But it's surprising that Christians who worship God every day, who believe in Christ, are not having life by reason of poor choices. You're hearing me? Remember the Bible says, I've put before you life and death. And it says, come on, choose life. Choose life by reason of feeding well. Choose life by reason of dieting appropriately. Yes.
Okay. So, you've talked about some of these foods, but I look at someone who really doesn't know that when I eat this, this falls under proteins, or this falls under carbohydrates. Maybe just to break down some of these foods and their categories, so that someone can really know that if I eat this and this only, then I've taken in only carbohydrates.
That's right. Now, food, we have what we call food and sauce.
Yes.
You hear that? All food is carbohydrate.
Okay.
All the food is carbohydrate. All the food to mean matoke, sweet potatoes, yams, pumpkins. We're talking about carbohydrates. You hearing me? And that should be the least on your plate. As an adult, as a person who's aspiring to live healthy, that should be the least on your plate. You're hearing that?
Some people even ask for more.
And I've watched folks on parties, literally fills the plate with a mountain on. With a mountain, walks with a plate, and they're not ashamed about that. That's terrible. Food, the carbohydrate food, the potatoes, yams, matoke, sweet potatoes, should be the least on your plate. Make sauce the most on your plate. Make fruits and vegetables the most on your plate. If you do that, honestly speaking, you'll not see diseases in your life. Trust me, you'll not. You're hearing me? Louis Pasteur spoke something very interesting. Louis Pasteur is the guy, a scientist behind pasteurization. He spoke something and he said, the germ is not the most important thing, but the state of the body. Even when it comes to chronic, to communicable diseases, the infectious diseases, even diet plays a role. Because if you eat appropriately and build your body with such a strong immunity, a germ will come and then bounce back. You're hearing that? So in either way, either in chronic conditions or NCDs or communicable diseases or, still diet plays key. You're hearing? Still diet plays key. So the food and then the sauce. The sauce is usually protein. And the sauce, we have two types of sauce. We have the plant-based sauces. And these include beans, simsimu, what else? Cowpeas, groundnuts. Those are the plant-based sauces. And they're the best sauces, They have proteins, they have vitamins, and they're less in saturated fat. And those are the kind of sauce we recommend people to take. It's okay to take beans. Back in school, people used to complain about beans. Schools are amazing. They choose foods wisely. The reason why they chose beans is because beans are healthier than beef. Honestly, they are. You hear it. When it comes to prevention of cardiovascular diseases, then beans are healthier than food. So plant-based sources, all sources are protein in nature. So plant-based sources are the best, and then animal-based sources, chicken are also protein in nature, fish, beef, mutton, and stuff like that. Then we also have the vitamins. The vitamins are basically from fruits and vegetables. Vitamins, vitamin A, vitamin B, vitamin C, vitamin E, the antioxidants and stuff like that. Every time you interact with fruits and vegetables, you're interacting with vitamins. You know, way back, they used to teach us that fruits and vegetables are basically health-giving foods.
Yes.
They're still health-giving foods. They have not changed. They are. These things, you know, sometimes when people are sick are given literally fruits and vegetables, but in tablet form. You've had people taking vitamin A, especially children at 6 months. You're hearing. You've had pregnant women being given FIFO. Yes. You're hearing me? FIFO. Those are basically in plants, you know, but they're giving them to you in tablet form. Why? Because you're not taking them. They're not taking them. Okay.
So interesting. So. Then of all the foods, I know somehow we talked about it, but if someone eats something, are there any effects they get by this food that can really warn them that what you've eaten is really not healthy? Is there a way a body can respond?
Some bodies do, some don't.
Okay.
There are people who are allergic to some foods. You hearing me? They will take milk, and then they're allergic to lactose, and then eventually they react. You hear it? Okay. But bodies don't, unless somebody's allergic to a certain nutrient in the food. Okay. The bodies will not show anything. Maybe the only way they will show is when you begin to bulge. But what's funny about bulging, like somebody, is that people begin to talk good about you.
You've got some money.
You've got some money.
Yeah. Life is okay.
Life is okay. Or nidira. You know those things. Those words. And that is why people always put on weight. They keep on putting on weight. You hearing me? And then at that time, you the clothes that used not to fit you, now they're tight on you. You really look good.
You have to change your wardrobe somehow.
Yes, you look good. You look good. That's what they say. You look good. So people who are small like us usually think we are broke and stuff like that.
Exactly.
Yeah, they think we're broke. but again, in the Western world, when you're obese, they associate you with poverty. Yeah, when you're obese. Yeah, actually, it's usually African Americans that are obese because they can't afford healthy foods. You hearing me? And apple in the US is damn expensive and stuff like that. Okay. So blacks can't afford that. Now that's why these blacks who are usually obese. So, but here in Africa, when you're obese, they think you have money. Yes.
So the other thing is about sleeping after eating. I remember while in school, not actually in school, while we were growing up at home,
right.
After lunch, they would send you to bed to sleep. Why? They say the food should concentrate in your body. You shouldn't play. You should sleep at least for some 2 hours and then wake up, then play. But then you actually say you shouldn't let this food rest in your body. Please talk about this.
Yeah, well, it's important that you give 2 hours before you sleep. You hearing me? Ideally, every time you eat, the reason for eating is to give you energy. You hearing me? Eating is like fueling your car. If you fuel your car, the next thing is to move your car.
Yeah.
Otherwise, there's no use in fueling it. So in the same way, when you eat food, it's important that you work. Paul writes, and he says, he who shouldn't work shouldn't eat.
Yeah.
You hearing me? There is a very strong correlation between work and what?
Eating.
And eating. If you really, that's why we don't recommend people to take heavy dinner. Your dinner should be a little bit light, depending on the time you've taken it. You hearing me? Some Ugandans take supper, which is late. Yeah. So if you're taking supper at 9 or 8, then it should be light. If you're taking dinner maybe at 6, then, well, it could be heavy because you have a lot of time before you go to bed. You're hearing me? The reason why, because you need to do some work. To kickstart the digestion. The digestion, of course, will start, but you need to burn out the calories. You're hearing? So it's not right to sleep immediately after eating. You're endangering your body.
So I eat a heavy supper and then I immediately go to bed.
No, that's risky. That's risky.
How is it risky?
I mean, all the calories that will be produced after digestion will settle in there. They'll not be burnt. You hear me? Activity burns the calories off. You get it? And that's why government is advocating for physical exercise, and there's a physical exercise day.
Yeah,
you know,
true.
It's, I think, gazetted, the physical exercise day. Very important. You hear me? The calories you take should be burned out by reason of exercise. And exercise is supposed to be easy, but we've complicated it. We think exercise is gym, and that is why most folks don't do exercise, because they think it's for the rich. I mean, you can't afford gym, you know. Yeah.
So, okay, I look at someone who has eaten their heavy supper. What are some of the simple exercises they can do at home just to burn?
House chores. House chores. Play. You see, Edwin, play shouldn't stop. Play shouldn't stop. Play doesn't stop when you're young. You hear me? Play should continue. It's okay. Play with your kids. Run about with your kids in the house. You know, do hide and seek. Do hide and seek. Skip with your kids. I mean, Proverbs 17:22, a merry heart is good medicine. Yes. You hearing me? Create a merry atmosphere around your house by reason of play. You hear me? Kids enjoy play. Our kids would prefer playing with their parents. Play. That's exercise. Do the house chores, mop your house, clean around your compound. But you know, we delegate all this to the nannies, you know. Yeah. We delegate all this to the nannies. So the nannies, after eating, you go and leave the nannies are shaped out well, whereas the mistress in the house is bulging.
And so the in-laws will really appreciate you for taking good care of her.
But it has brought complication in homes. We've seen men, you know, going for nannies. Yeah, some men were not disciplined because you've bulged. The lady's listening to me. Yes.
Oh, well, what are some of the ways someone can really reduce the obesity?
Of course, cut down the sugars. It's the easiest way to cut obesity. If you're based out there, you can't cut obesity in one night. No one should lie to you that you reduce in 1 week. You know, I hear people speaking on media. Come in, you're going to cut weight in 2 weeks, 3 weeks. No, it can't happen.
Take this in 7 days. You'll have a.
You didn't get it in 1 week. You didn't become overweight in 2 weeks. You hearing me? It was over some time. So even taking it back will require some time. There is a smart way. I've written a book called The Smartest Way to Cut Weight. There's a smart way to cut weight. You hearing me? One of the smartest ways to cut weight is just cut down the calories. Cut down. You can even put them off depending on your day. You can eat the chicken, eat the beef, the chicken, some vegetable salads, and some fruits. The glucose you want in the carbohydrate food is in the fruits. You know, depending on your age and your activity, you can try to cut down the calories, even almost completely. Especially if you're taking the fruits, because the fruits have the glucose. Yes.
We can't end this discussion without talking about junk foods, because you realize almost every office in Kampala, people feed on junks for lunch, and Monday to Friday when they're in office, and maybe they have reserved only Sunday where they can have the organic foods at home. What is the problem with these junks that we are taking every day?
Yeah, of course, junks, depending where you buy it from, they're high in glucose, high in sugars, the simple sugars, the calories we're talking about. Junks, and most junks are also high in fats. Now the question is, we don't know what kind of fat they use to fry them. That is where the problem is. So you could be taking in a saturated fat, you know, which was used to fry some fries. You hearing me? Yeah. So I would prefer that instead of snacking with junk, why don't you do the fruits and vegetables? Do the fruits and vegetables. Pack your food. I recommend my clients to pack food. That is one of the easiest way you can check on the food you eat. Pack the food. Take some time in the morning and pack your food. You don't have to pack very heavy food. Pack some food. Yeah, maybe the other thing we didn't talk about, Edwin, which I want to remember, is that there are folks who usually ask, I hope we have time for questions?
Let us continue.
Yeah, we have some folks who have gone the thing of blood group and nutrition. It's a common thing. It's a very common thing.
And you can talk about
very, very common thing, and almost everybody's following it because it's being perpetuated and being proclaimed big time. So lots of folks have at least heard it or even gone there and stuff like that. Well, I've heard about that thing, and every time I have an opportunity of speaking to people, I'm asked a similar question. I'm blood group this and this, and this is the way I'm feeding. I'm blood groups A, B, C, D, and blah, 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 blah. This is what they told me to feed. Now, unfortunately, that science is not a confirmed science. You hear me?
Yeah.
It's not a confirmed science. You know, there was a challenge. This thing started in the US, and it was so common in the US until Food and Drug Authority, FDA, in the US picked interest in it and decided to do a similar research of what that doctor did. You hear me? And they did it quite on the more people than it did, and blah, blah, and blah, blah. And they came out with something very amazing and said that anybody who does blood group and nutrition should do it at their own risk. That is Food and Drug Authority in United States. It's a body that takes up almost drugs and foods in the US. And once it's in the US, it's all over the world. Because this is where the thing of food, nutrition, and diet came from. You hear me? So I've had it being perpetuated, but some people claim it has worked for them, which could be true, of course, but the science behind it is unclear. You know, I should say it's unclear. Yeah.
Okay. Dr. Mr. Denis, as we wind up this discussion, what are your parting shots on nutrition and the heart?
Your heart can be fine. Your heart can be fine. Even when you have hypertension, especially in its initial stages, if it's just coming, you hearing me? You went somewhere and then they checked, and then your BP was about 150 over about 90 or 80, and then you're a young man of about 35. We believe that hypertension could go back. You hearing me? By reason of diet. If you checked your weight, if you checked your salt consumption or sodium consumption, if you checked on so many things, it can go back. So diet still is very key when it comes to heart health. You hear me? One of the most important things to do with if you're checking at heart health. Most of the folks that are sick because of foods they're taking. You hear me? Yeah, so I do believe if you can check your diet. And how do you check your diet, Edwin? Diet is medicine. And you never know how you should eat until you visit a dietitian or a nutritionist, maybe like me. You hear me? Now, Edwin, you realize that a child of 0 to 6 months, breast milk suffices. You hear me? After 6 months, however much you want, breast milk will not suffice a child after 6 months. So you have to switch. You know, in addition to the breast milk, you add in some things. Add in some milk, add in some porridge, add in some potatoes. You hearing me? Now, what does that mean? That means that every stage in life, somebody should change how they diet. You hear me? A teenager should not eat the same way as an adult. An elderly person should not eat the same way as a middle-aged person. You hearing me? Some females, women, should not probably eat in very similar way to male counterparts. You see, a teenage girl should not probably eat the same way as a teenage boy. You hear what I'm saying? Yeah. So we are different in one way, but all these differences should come in. All these differences should be can be checked by a dietitian if you visit the right person. You've seen women when they're pregnant, they put on excess weight, lots of weight, and it shouldn't be so. You hearing me? Ideally, the maximum weight a woman should put on in pregnancy should be about 12. Maximum about 12 to cater for the child, the fridge, the uterus, and so many things. About 12. But women put on up to 20 kilograms when they're pregnant and fail to shed it off. You know why? It's because they didn't visit a nutritionist. Ideally, any stage in life, visit a nutritionist and ask them, how should I eat? A nutritionist will take time to assess you and ask you questions like, what's your age, what's your activity, what are your likes and dislikes, tastes and preferences, what's your medical history, and by so doing, they will design for you a very good menu. You hear it? That will suit you, that will not allow you to put on weight, will not allow you to grow bees and stuff like that. So, visit a nutritionist if you want to live healthy.
Thank you so much, Mr. Musoga Denis. It is really, really very, very interesting that the way we have really abandoned our nutrition. But it is important that we get back to the roots.
Right.
This is not how we were. We just adopted this so we can unlearn everything. Thank you so much, Uganda Heart Institute. Thank you so much, Mr. Musoga Denis. And thank you so much to you, our viewer, who has been watching from the time we started up to now. Now, this marks the end of this edition. Tomorrow is a Wednesday where we shall be discussing family, finance, and wealth. Now, we know that this is a customer appreciation week. This has been adopted by very many banks, but even you in your shop, it is important that you know the customer care best practices. So we shall be discussing this tomorrow with a team that you do not have to miss. Edwin Austin Mukalazi is my name. I've worked with Brinko Ategeka. Don't eat Chikomando Brinko after this show, please. We kindly request. And then Didymus in transmission, and very many other people putting things together. Nancy Kemgisha on social media. God bless you. We meet again next time.
God bless you.